Democracy. It's a word we throw around all the time. It's how we vote, how we govern, how we hold leaders accountable. But did you know that democracy was once considered a dangerous idea? That it was born in rebellion, grew in conflict, and continues to evolve even today? Welcome to Infinitia Verity. Today we're taking a journey through one of humanity's greatest experiments, democracy. From the ancient world to the modern era, we'll uncover surprising facts, pivotal moments, and the challenges shaping its future. So buckle up. This is going to be a fascinating ride. Our story begins in ancient Athens, Greece, over 2,500 years ago. It's 508 BCE, and the city is in turmoil. Tyrants have ruled, the people are restless, and a visionary leader named Cleisthenes introduces a groundbreaking idea, Democracia, or rule by the people. But let's pause for a moment. What exactly was Athenian democracy? It wasn't like modern democracies with elections, political parties, or universal suffrage. Instead, it was a direct democracy. Every eligible citizen could vote on laws and policies. Here's how it worked. Citizens gathered in the ecclesia, an assembly where major decisions were debated and voted on. A council called the boule handled day-to-day governance, and officials were chosen not by election, but by lottery. Imagine you're an Athenian potter. After a long day at the wheel, you head to the Agora, Athens' public square, where debates rage about taxes, wars, or public works. You raise your hand to vote, knowing your voice counts as much as anyone else's. It's exhilarating, but also exhausting. The system wasn't perfect. Women, slaves, and foreigners who made up the majority of the population were excluded. Only about 30,000 male citizens out of a population of 300,000 could participate. And because everything was debated openly, decisions could be chaotic, even impulsive. Athenians used a process called ostracism to protect their democracy. Each year, citizens could vote to exile one person they thought was becoming too powerful. Imagine if we could do that today. While Athens pioneered direct democracy, Rome took a different path. In 509 BCE, Rome overthrew its monarchy and established a republic, a system of government where citizens elected representatives to make decisions on their behalf. The Roman Republic was built on the idea of checks and balances. Power was divided among the Senate, the consuls, and the assemblies, ensuring no single person or group could dominate. Sound familiar? Modern democracies borrow heavily from this system. But Rome's democracy wasn't without its flaws. The Senate was dominated by patricians, the wealthy elite, while plebeians, or commoners, had limited influence. Over time, tensions between these groups led to reforms like the creation of the tribunes of the plebs who could veto decisions harmful to the lower classes. Imagine being a Roman plebeian farmer. You work hard, but most laws favor the patricians. Then one day you hear about the 12 Tables, the first codified laws of Rome. Finally, everyone knows the rules, and justice isn't just for the elite. It's a small step, but it changes everything. The Roman Republic lasted nearly 500 years, but it ultimately collapsed under the weight of corruption, inequality, and power struggles. The lesson? Even the strongest democracies can falter if their foundations are weakened. With the fall of the Roman Republic came centuries of autocracy. The Middle Ages were dominated by monarchies and feudal systems. Kings ruled by divine right, claiming their authority came directly from God. For most people, the idea of having a say in government was unimaginable. But even in this era, democratic ideas didn't completely disappear. One of the most important milestones came in 1215, when England's barons forced King John to sign the Magna Carta. This document limited the king's power and established the principle that no one, not even the monarch, is above the law. Imagine you're a baron in medieval England. King John has taxed you heavily to fund his wars. You and your fellow nobles demand a meeting, and the result is the Magna Carta. It doesn't create a democracy, but it's a crack in the armor of absolute monarchy. The Magna Carta influenced the development of constitutional law, inspiring documents like the English Bill of Rights in 1689 and the U.S. Constitution. Fast forward to the 17th and 18th centuries. The Enlightenment was a period of intellectual and cultural revolution. Thinkers like John Locke, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and Baron de Montesquieu questioned traditional authority and argued for individual rights and self-governance. John Locke's idea of natural rights, life, liberty, and property, laid the foundation for modern democracy. Rousseau's social contract argued that governments derive their authority from the consent of the governed, while Montesquieu proposed the separation of powers to prevent tyranny. Imagine sitting in a Parisian salon, surrounded by philosophers debating these revolutionary ideas. Their writings don't just inspire intellectuals, they fuel revolutions. Did you know that Thomas Jefferson, the primary author of the Declaration of Independence, was heavily influenced by Locke's writings? The phrase unalienable rights is a direct reflection of Enlightenment ideals. The late 18th century saw two pivotal revolutions: the American Revolution in 1776 and the French Revolution in 1789. These weren't just fights for independence, they were battles for democracy. The American Declaration of Independence declared that all men are created equal, while the U.S. Constitution introduced a system of checks and balances inspired by the Roman Republic. Across the Atlantic, the French Revolution challenged the idea of divine right and introduced universal male suffrage during its most radical phase. Imagine being an American colonist. You've been taxed without representation, and now you're signing a declaration that defies the British crown. Or picture yourself in Paris during the storming of the Bastille, fighting for liberty, equality, and fraternity. The French Revolution's Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen became a template for human rights declarations worldwide. The 19th century saw democracy spread across Europe and the Americas, but it was far from inclusive. In most countries, voting was limited to property-owning men. The fight for universal suffrage, extending the right to vote to all adults, was just beginning. In 1832, Britain passed the Reform Act, expanding voting rights to the middle class. Meanwhile, movements like Chartism demanded further reforms. Across the Atlantic, abolitionists fought for the rights of enslaved people, and women's suffrage movements gained momentum. Did you know New Zealand was the first country to grant women the right to vote in 1893? It was a groundbreaking moment for democracy. The 20th century saw democracy flourish, but also face unprecedented challenges. After two world wars, many nations adopted democratic systems, inspired by the success of the US and Europe's recovery under the Marshall Plan. Think about India. In 1947, it became the world's largest democracy. Despite its diversity and challenges, India's democratic institutions have endured for over 75 years. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the United Nations in 1948, declared democracy a fundamental human right, influencing new democracies worldwide. But democracy isn't perfect. Today, it faces challenges like rising authoritarianism, political polarization, and the impact of technology. Social media can amplify voices, but it can also spread misinformation and undermine trust in democratic institutions. Think about the Arab Spring. Social media mobilized millions to demand change, but many movements were met with crackdowns or resulted in fragile democracies. According to the Freedom House report, global democracy has been in decline for over a decade. Yet grassroots movements worldwide show that people still believe in the power of their voices. Democracy is not just a system, it's a journey. It's a promise that every voice matters, but it's a promise we must fight to keep. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the evolution of democracy. If you found this video inspiring, hit like, subscribe to Infinitia Verity, and share it with others. And tell us, what do you think is the greatest challenge facing democracy today? Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay empowered.